You know the exact feeling, right? It is like 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
You just walk through the front door after this completely exhausting, relentless day.
Oh, yeah. The dreaded 6 o'clock slump.
Exactly. And you find yourself just staring blankly into the open refrigerator. The harsh light is illuminating this random assortment of condiments, maybe a slightly sad-looking head of lettuce.
All right, the wilted lettuce.
Yeah, and that familiar heavy sense of dread starts creeping in. You are faced with the age-old, totally unavoidable question of, what on earth is for dinner?
And, well, in our highly optimized, convenience-driven culture, that specific 6 o'clock dread usually triggers a really predictable reflex. We just want to avoid the problem entirely.
Yep, 100%.
So we reach into our pockets, we pull out our phones, and we open a delivery app. Or maybe we grab a cardboard box from the freezer that we can just throw in the microwave.
Right.
We basically do whatever it takes to make the friction of preparing food go away as quickly as humanly possible.
Because we treat cooking like it's this massive, unavoidable hurdle in our day. It's a chore to be rushed through, or minimized, or just completely outsourced. It is pure labor.
Exactly.
But what if we have been looking at that 6 o'clock fridge stare entirely wrong? Today, our mission is to completely reframe that perspective for you.
We are really attempting a profound shift in thinking today. I mean, we are moving away from looking at food preparation purely as a functional, tedious necessity for human survival.
Yeah.
And instead, we're going to examine it as a highly accessible psychological tool.
And to do that, we are digging into some seriously fascinating clinical insights today. We are looking at the work of Robert Castellano. He's a clinician who operates in the forensic environment, and he wrote this piece for Psychology Today.
Which is such a unique perspective.
It is, which I love, because we aren't just reading like lighthearted, fluffy self-care tips here.
Yeah.
We are taking a really clinical, grounded look at how everyday behaviors fundamentally alter our mental state. So whether you are incredibly busy and relying heavily on the drive-through window, or you are feeling overwhelmed by the constant info overload of modern life, or, maybe you are just insanely curious about human behavior, this deep dive is for you.
It really is.
We're going to reveal how the simple act of preparing a meal is actually a potent, multi-layered tool for your mental health. So, okay, let's unpack this. How do we go from viewing chopping an onion as a tedious punishment to seeing it as an active psychological intervention?
Well, it starts with recognizing the physical reality of the kitchen. I mean, cooking is an inherently sensory and embodied activity.
Okay, what do you mean by embodied?
Think about what actually happens when you stand at a counter to prepare a meal. You have the tactile experience of chopping vegetables, like feeling the sudden snap of a carrot or the specific way a knife slides through a tomato.
Oh, right.
You have the acoustic feedback of oil sizzling in a pan. You've got the potent aroma of garlic and onions hitting the heat. And you are visually tracking the transformation of all these raw, disconnected ingredients into a cohesive dish.
Wow. Yeah, when you list it out like that, it's a lot.
It is. And all of those intense sensory inputs demand one specific thing from your brain, which is present moment awareness.
Which is basically the core definition of mindfulness, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
It's that practice of paying non-judgmental attention to exactly what is happening right in front of you, right in this exact second.
And from a clinical standpoint, demanding that kind of present moment awareness is incredibly significant because it directly combats a cognitive process called rumination.
Rumination, that's the endless overthinking, right?
Right. Rumination is that repetitive negative loop of thinking we all fall into. It's when your brain gets stuck replaying a stressful conversation you had with a coworker 3 hours ago, or, endlessly catastrophizing about a deadline next week.
Oh, I know that loop well.
We all do. It's like a record slipping on the worst possible track. And that specific cognitive loop is strongly associated with depression and anxiety.
So if I'm understanding this right, when you are hyper-focused on making sure you don't burn the garlic, because, burning garlic ruins the whole dish and you have to start over.
It totally ruins it, yeah.
You literally cannot be ruminating about that awkward email you sent your boss. The garlic demands your entire cognitive load.
Exactly. It forcibly redirects your attention. Engaging in these concrete, manageable, highly sensory tasks functions as an informal mindfulness practice.
Right.
It pulls your attention away from those negative, abstract, swirling thoughts and anchors it firmly in the physical world. Activities that anchor attention in this specific way actively interrupt the physiological cycle of anxiety.
It's like cooking is a sneaky form of meditation.
I love that phrase. Sneaky meditation.
Because, when a lot of people hear the word mindfulness, they immediately picture having to sit perfectly still on a cushion in a silent room with their eyes closed for an hour.
Which is daunting.
Yeah. And honestly, for someone who's already anxious, being left alone with your thoughts in a silent room can sound like actual torture.
Oh, absolutely.
But here, you don't have to sit still. You don't have to clear your mind. You just have to focus on stirring a sauce or kneading some dough to induce a calming state.
And that physical movement combined with sensory focus is incredibly effective for people who struggle with seated silent meditation. It gives the anxious brain a job to do.
But wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure.
Calling the kitchen a calming Zen environment feels like a massive stretch for a lot of people. Isn't cooking incredibly stressful?
Wow.
Like you've got a pot boiling over, the smoke alarm is blaring, you realize halfway through that you are missing a crucial ingredient and maybe you have kids yelling in the background. That does not sound like mindfulness. That sounds like a panic attack waiting to happen.
That is a very, very fair critique. And that is exactly where we have to draw a hard line between feeding people to survive a Tuesday and cooking as a therapeutic tool.
Okay, so what's the difference?
The kitchen only becomes that restorative environment when it is approached intentionally. If you are frantically rushing to throw calories on a plate just so you can rush to the next commitment on your calendar, it absolutely will generate stress.
Right, obviously.
Yeah.
But just telling someone to be intentional when the smoke alarm is going off feels like, I don't know, putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. How do you actually shift that gear?
You shift the gear by changing the goal. When you approach the kitchen intentionally, you are choosing to focus on the process rather than just racing to the finish line of having food to consume.
Interesting.
You create a structured yet flexible environment to immerse yourself cognitively. Maybe you choose a night when you have 30 extra minutes, or you pick a recipe you are genuinely excited about. You allow yourself to actually notice the smell of the spices instead of just dumping them in blindly.
So it's a deliberate choice to step into the kitchen, rather than feeling dragged into it by your stomach. But, stopping negative thoughts is just one side of the psychological coin. It's great that stirring a sauce hits the pause button on anxiety and stops the rumination. But how does cooking actually help us build positive psychological momentum?
That is a great question.
Like, how do we go from just not panicking to actively feeling capable and good?
That brings us to a really powerful psychological concept called self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Self-efficacy is defined as your belief in your own ability to execute the behaviors necessary to achieve a desired outcome. In the simplest terms, it is your internal, deeply held belief that you are capable of getting things done and affecting your environment.
Which is huge, because we live in a world where so many of our daily stressors feel completely uncontrollable.
Oh, totally out of our hands.
Think about the economy, the endless news cycle, office politics, or even just waiting for an email reply. You can pour an immense amount of effort into your day and see absolutely zero tangible result by the time you go to bed.
And living in that abstract, uncontrollable space severely depletes your self-efficacy over time. You start to feel helpless.
Right.
But the kitchen operates on a completely different set of rules. Cooking provides a domain where your effort reliably and consistently yields a tangible result.
Cause and effect.
Exactly. You follow a sequence of steps, you apply heat, and you successfully produce a meal. That direct, undeniable cause and effect relationship reinforces a deep sense of competence.
It is, it's like a video game quest.
A video game quest.
Yeah. Think about it. Cooking is a real-world side quest you can actually complete today.
Yeah.
You accept the mission, you gather the materials from the fridge, you perform the necessary tasks, and you get an immediate, tangible reward at the end.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right, you don't have to wait for a quarterly performance review to know if you made a good bowl of soup. You put it in the bowl, you taste it, and you get immediate feedback.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychological power of that completed quest is enormous. This is particularly true for individuals who are navigating periods of severe life transition, grief, or instability. When everything else in your life is chaotic and up in the air, having a discrete task with a clear beginning, a middle, and an end is incredibly grounding.
It proves to your brain that you still have agency. You can still make something happen.
Exactly.
And that need for structure leads into another concept clinicians talk about, which is temporal organization. I know we saw a massive crisis with this during the lockdowns a few years ago. That phenomenon where all the days just blurred into one endless, formless soup of time.
Oh, the time blur, yes. Temporal organization is essentially how we structure our perception of time and our place within it.
Okay.
When someone is struggling with their mental health or dealing with major life disruptions, days lose their shape. There is a profound feeling of aimlessness.
Right.
Establishing a regular cooking routine, knowing that at 6 p.m. it is time to transition away from work and prepare dinner, helps individuals psychologically orient themselves. It breaks the day into manageable, structured segments.
It acts as a physical cue to your brain that the day is moving forward.
Right.
And building that daily, weekly, or even seasonal routine of noticing what ingredients are fresh. It reduces cognitive load. You aren't constantly making rapid-fire stressful decisions about how to feed yourself.
Exactly.
But the beauty is that this feeling of completion and capability doesn't just stay trapped in the kitchen, does it?
Far from it. Over time, these repeated, tangible successes generalize into broader feelings of confidence. If you can master a complex recipe that intimidated you yesterday, your brain starts to ask, well, maybe you can tackle that difficult conversation you've been avoiding.
Oh, wow.
Maybe you can handle that challenging work project. Furthermore, establishing this routine anchors other healthy behaviors.
Like what?
Well, people who cook regularly are more likely to have consistent meal times, which stabilizes blood sugar, which in turn stabilizes mood. It is a cascading effect.
Structure is obviously vital for our brains.
Yeah.
But I think it is safe to say nobody wants to feel like an assembly line robot in their own home, just blindly following a manual.
No, of course not.
We crave self-expression. And this brings us to how cooking uniquely balances that rigid, comforting structure with the freedom to actually be creative.
Yes, cooking occupies a very unique space between art and utility. It allows for considerable creative expression. I mean, you are making decisions about flavor profiles, adjusting seasonings, playing with presentation, or improvising when you are missing an ingredient.
Yeah.
But unlike purely abstract art forms, like, say, sculpting or painting, it results in something immediately useful and rewarding.
Right. You can't usually eat an oil painting when you are finished with it.
Exactly.
No matter how much effort you put into it, it doesn't solve your immediate biological need for dinner.
And that dual function utility plus creativity actually enhances its therapeutic potential. The predictability of cooking provides the safety net. The measuring, the timing, the sequencing, those are the rules.
The boundaries.
Right, they provide that sense of order that counterbalances emotional chaos. But within that safe, ordered structure, you have an infinite number of choices. It creates a low-stakes environment to experiment and take risks.
Here's where it gets really interesting. You are combining two opposing forces. You are bound by the rigid laws of chemistry and thermodynamics.
Right.
Like you absolutely have to bake the bread at a specific temperature for a specific amount of time, or the chemical reaction simply won't happen.
Yeah.
The structure is non-negotiable.
Yes.
But within those strict boundaries, you get to decide if that bread has rosemary in it, or jalapenos, or sharp cheddar cheese. You get to play. And clinical research highlights this as a highly practical strategy for emotional regulation.
It really is. When you engage in this kind of focused, goal-directed activity that balances structure with play, it literally hits the brakes on your nervous system.
It's the brakes.
Yeah, the physiological arousal associated with stress diminishes, your heart rate can actually drop, your shallow breathing can deepen and regulate. And beyond just calming down the nervous system, the anticipation of the meal and the sheer satisfaction of tasting something you successfully adapted and prepared actively trigger positive emotional responses. It is a highly effective natural mood elevator.
And those positive emotional responses aren't just about the food itself, are they? There is a deeply psychological element here too, emotional anchoring and nostalgia. It's like cooking is essentially a socially acceptable form of time travel.
Oh, it's a profound element of the human experience. The olfactory bulb, which is the part of the brain responsible for our sense of smell, is directly connected to the brain's emotional and memory centers.
Right.
For many individuals, cooking familiar recipes evokes an intense wave of nostalgia. It intimately connects them to positive memories, past experiences, and loved ones.
So you smell a specific combination of, say, onions, paprika, and butter sizzling in a pan, and suddenly you are not in your tiny apartment. You are 8 years old again, standing in your grandmother's kitchen on a Sunday afternoon.
Exactly. And during periods of distress, isolation, or loneliness, those emotional associations are incredibly valuable therapeutic tools. They offer a deep source of comfort and a feeling of continuity.
That's beautiful.
By cooking that meal, you are physically recreating a piece of your past in the present moment, which proves to your nervous system that you carry those positive experiences and connections with you wherever you go.
But nostalgia and memory, by their very nature, almost always involve other people,
True.
which naturally shifts our focus.
Sure.
Up until now, we have been talking a lot about the internal solitary benefits of cooking, like how it halts your own rumination, builds your own self-efficacy, and regulates your nervous system. But cooking has massive external relational impacts as well.
It does. And to understand the clinical weight of this external impact, we should look at an intervention called behavioral activation.
Okay, clinicians use behavioral activation a lot to treat depression, right?
Yes, very commonly.
The basic premise, from what I understand, is that depression creates this vicious, paralyzing cycle of withdrawal. You feel terrible, so you stop engaging with the world. You stop doing hobbies. You stop calling friends.
Exactly.
But withdrawing makes you feel even more isolated and worse, which makes you withdraw even further. So behavioral activation is a way to break that cycle by deliberately forcing yourself to engage in purposeful, enjoyable activities to rebuild positive reinforcement.
You nailed it.
So how does chopping vegetables fit into that specific clinical framework?
Cooking fits the behavioral activation framework perfectly because it is naturally dual purpose. It is inherently purposeful. You literally need to consume food to survive.
Right.
But it is also potentially highly enjoyable. By committing to the act of cooking, you are interrupting the withdrawal cycle. You are increasing your engagement with the physical world, which is a proven method to reduce depressive symptoms. But the most crucial detail here is its scalability.
Scalability. Right, because when someone is deep in a depressive episode or, just completely burnt out from a demanding job, telling them to go cook a 5-course French meal is a recipe for failure.
It's way too much friction.
Exactly.
And that's exactly why the scalability of cooking makes it uniquely sustainable as an intervention. On low-functioning days, when your energy and motivation are severely depleted, maybe you only have 10% of your normal capacity to give.
Yeah, we all have those days.
Just preparing a very simple meal provides a vital sense of achievement. Boiling pasta, scrambling an egg, or even just mindfully assembling a sandwich counts.
You still complete the cycle.
Yes, you still complete the cycle, you still care for yourself, but then on high-functioning days, when you have more mental bandwidth, tackling a complex, multi-step recipe offers intense stimulation, problem-solving, and a much larger reward. It meets you exactly where you are, day by day.
It doesn't demand 100% of your energy if you only have 10% to give.
Precisely.
But let's look at how this scales outward, past our own energy levels and into our social circles. Because social connection is universally recognized as one of the most robust predictors of long-term mental health.
And what's fascinating here is that cooking is rarely an entirely solitary activity, even when you are physically alone in the room.
Oh, really? How so?
Cooking carries an implicit social dimension. You might be alone at the stove, but you are likely using a recipe shared by a friend, or you are participating in a broader cultural food tradition, or perhaps you are preparing food that you intend to serve to others later.
So the simple act of choosing what to cook connects you to a wider community. You are participating in human history. You aren't just making dinner. You are engaging in a shared human practice that spans millennia.
Absolutely. And when the results of that cooking are shared directly with others, it becomes an incredibly powerful medium for deep connection. It fosters collaboration and communication. Creating a meal together, even if it is just one person chopping and the other stirring, provides an opportunity for collective accomplishment. And then the meal itself serves as a focal point for social interaction.
Right, because sitting around a table sharing food that was created with intention reinforces social bonds. It facilitates meaningful conversation in a way that just sitting on a couch staring at a television together simply doesn't.
It's totally different. We see this most deeply in family contexts. Think about recipes passed down through generations. They're essentially edible archives.
Edible archives, I love that.
They carry narratives, they carry family values, and they hold profound cultural meaning. When you learn to make your family's specific holiday dish or that one specific dessert, you are actively strengthening your sense of belonging. You are participating in identity formation,
You know who you are and where you come from, partly because of the food you know how to make.
which is a critical, irreplaceable component of psychological well-being. Knowing you are part of a continuous lineage, even if that connection is maintained just through a specific recipe for a stew or a loaf of bread, provides immense psychological armor against the pervasive feelings of modern isolation and loneliness.
Wow. So what does this all mean for you? It means that we need a radical shift in how we view the kitchen. I mean, we have unpacked how the sensory immersion of chopping and smelling ingredients acts as a mindfulness practice, actively short-circuiting the harmful loops of anxiety and rumination.
Right.
We have seen how the reliable cause and effect of following the recipe build a profound sense of self-efficacy, proving to your brain that you are still capable of creating tangible results in a chaotic world.
Exactly.
We have explored how cooking balances necessary structure with low-stakes creativity, acting as a natural regulator for your nervous system. And we've seen how it scales to match your daily energy levels, all while implicitly and explicitly connecting you to your community, your history, and your loved ones.
It's a lot more than just dinner.
It really is. So the next time you are standing in front of that open refrigerator at 6 o'clock, you have an opportunity. You don't have to view the impending task as a labor-intensive chore. You can choose to see it as an accessible, adaptable space for your own well-being.
Which leaves us with a really critical, broader question to consider. Our culture constantly pushes us through relentless advertising, hyper-convenient app design, and the glorification of being busy to outsource our cooking.
Yeah, constantly.
We are told that buying back that time is the ultimate luxury. But if the physical act of preparing a meal provides us with crucial psychological grounding, essential daily structure, a primary avenue for emotional regulation, and our most visceral connection to our cultural identity,
We have to ask ourselves.
right, we have to ask, what are the hidden psychological costs of a society that completely outsources the preparation of its own food? If we optimize away the 30 minutes spent chopping the vegetables and stirring the pot, what vital grounding human experiences are we accidentally optimizing entirely out of our lives?
That is a lingering thought to chew on the next time you hear a microwave beep or a delivery driver knock on your front door. Because maybe the answer to that 6 o'clock feeling of dread isn't to figure out how to escape the kitchen faster. Maybe the answer is to finally, intentionally, step all the way in. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.